Let's go to the Hill, and NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Also with us is former Republican governor of Ohio, John Kasich, and professor at Columbia University and Democratic strategist Basil Smikle. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Melanie, we just heard from the Democratic leader, but are Republicans there on Capitol Hill feeling the same?
For the most part, Republicans are ducking and dodging, or in some cases even defending Donald Trump. The line we've heard most from Republicans is that there can't be anything fishy or suspicious about this because both sides are being upfront about the arrangement. But it's very clear that there are some Republicans who are at least a little uncomfortable and a little queasy about this whole thing. But instead of criticizing Trump or saying he shouldn't accept the plane, instead they're talking about how we already have a plane, of course, that is Air Force One. Just take a listen to these mixed responses from Republicans.
Are you concerned about this just on its face, the idea of accepting a plane in this way from the Qataris?
Well, it's pretty transparent, so it's not like it's going underneath the radar here now, is it?
I have a lot of thoughts on it.
What do you think?
Now, answer your question specifically, I'd have to defer to ethics people on that point. But I know this, I've ridden on Air Force One, and there's plenty of quality there for the next 50 years.
Now, there is at least one exception in the GOP. That is Republican Senator Rand Paul. He says he thinks it's a bad idea or a mistake for Trump to accept this plane. But so far, few other Republicans echoing those concerns right now.
Governor Kasich, we know Senator Rand Paul is calling this a mistake and saying that the plane as a gift sends the wrong signal. How do you view it?
Well, Anna, when I was governor, you know, I had to get off of everything. I mean, I was on a board of just of a place where I hung out that was of no significance whatsoever. Look, I hope when I got done being governor, maybe they'd give me a bicycle. I mean, when I heard about this, I just sort of chuckled and laughed. But look, the reason why you don't take things is because you get influenced. You know, it just doesn't make any sense to me that, I mean, it's just so, Anna, frankly, I mean, I don't know how you even make this stuff up. It's so ridiculous. And do I think he should take the plane? No, I don't know what the Qataris are trying to do. But when I was in office, I always operated with being a little bit paranoid that I need to make sure that I don't cross any lines, that I don't get into bad conflicts, that I'm not in a situation where, you know, people are going to start questioning my ethics. And so that's the way that I operated. And I think it's the right way to operate. You don't get into trouble. And yet we're not talking here about, you know, some minor thing. We're talking about a jumbo jet, right?
Yeah.
A 747 as a gift.
What they're calling a floating palace that's worth billions of dollars at a time, by the way, when American people are saying, I'm having a hard time paying for groceries. The optics of that sends another signal. But Basil, we know Democrats on the Hill are calling for an ethics investigation. I just wondered, do they have power to do that? And is there anything else they can do?
Well, what Senator Schumer said earlier with holding up the Justice Department nominees, I think is an important first step. And it's important also because Pam Bondi herself was a lobbyist for the government of Qatar, $115,000 a month for almost 2 years. Are you kidding me? There are tremendous potential ethics violations and conflicts of interest involved. And I always think about this because I always try to sort of think if situations were reversed. Imagine if Barack Obama got a tricked out airplane from another country. I could only imagine the memes, the horrible memes, some of them probably funny, but some really horrible memes that would have been all over the internet.
I have to think the Republicans would have been saying something different than what we
Absolutely.
played as well.
Very different. I mean, it would be horrendous. So, you know, the governor's right. Anybody that's ever been in government should understand that you have to act with a little bit of paranoia. I was in every level of government. If I had a dinner over a certain amount of money, I had to report that. So a $400 million plane, which is probably worth a lot more, is a violation of at many other levels.
We're looking at these live images as we expect the president any moment there in Saudi Arabia to address this economic forum. So we'll keep an eye on that. In the meantime, Melanie, there's a lot happening on the Hill as it relates to the budget. And I want to ask you about the Medicaid fight brewing there. Two key House committees that oversee the program are set to meet this afternoon to discuss potential cuts. What's the latest?
Yeah, this has been one of the biggest sticking points in this debate over Trump's big domestic policy bill. And at issue here is that conservative hardliners have been calling for massive cuts to Medicaid in order to pay for their tax priorities, whereas moderate Republicans have warned against making any cuts to Medicaid. And so the final product that is getting a committee vote later today attempts to essentially strike a balance between those two camps. It does not include some of the steepest potential cuts to Medicaid, like reducing the federal match rate, but it does include some pretty significant changes, such as instituting work requirements, something that is not currently in place for able-bodied adults who don't have dependents. There's also going to be more frequent eligibility checks, and there's also going to be a crackdown on non-citizens who are on the Medicaid rolls. So this is going to be a big showdown later today. It could result in millions of Americans losing their Medicaid coverage. So far, we're hearing they're going to have the votes in committee. The bigger question is what happens on the floor potentially next week, Anna.
Governor, roughly 9 million Americans could be impacted by Medicaid cuts. This issue, we know, has divided Republicans. GOP Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri calling it, quote, morally wrong and politically suicidal. What do you make of those remarks?
Anna, when I became governor, because I actually had to handle Medicaid, I don't even talk about the old days, but I have to point out some facts. When I came in, Medicaid was growing at about 9%, okay? It was a high rate of growth. I expanded Medicaid and put 600,000 more people on the rolls, but my Medicaid program was actually growing at about 4.5%. It's now growing, my understanding is, over 10%. Well, how did we do that? Because we reformed the program. We made sure that we took care of people who were the most vulnerable, but we also were able to make tough decisions. How much money we are paying providers. Can we have a system that stresses quality? There's many ways to reform this program where you can stop the significant growth in the program and yet still protect the vulnerable. But that requires tough decision making. It requires character. It requires leadership. I believe that it can be done, but you have to do it. You have to do it carefully. In addition to that, look, I think that the whole healthcare system, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, any of the costs that we have, if I were in charge, if I were the president, I would gather all the doctors, all the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, and look at health care and have a system that rewards keeping people healthy, not giving them rewards for treating people to keep giving them tests when they're sick. This is a big idea. It's something that should be done because our health care system can be more effective, can be more efficient, can be more transparent. All that can happen. And so that's what I have to say.
I think people in both parties can agree with all of that you just said in terms of what is needed to improve the healthcare system. Basil, we've seen this dance before where Republicans propose healthcare cuts, Democrats campaign against it, seems to work out in their favor. I'm wondering this time around, it seems that Democratic voters are saying, yeah, do something more. What can Democrats do? Where does the party go from here?
Well, I think calling out exactly some of the challenges with these cuts and what it will do for the average American. You also tie that to the fact that you're cutting significant parts of the social safety net on the one hand, and prices are going up on the other, particularly with these tariffs. So if you're in a rural community, if you're an ex-urban community, and if you're a small business, all of these things are going to affect your bottom line, and costs for the average American are going to go up. But by the way, we're also cutting your health care at the same time. So I think using a lot of that language, in addition to the fact that, and this is going to Josh Hawley's op-ed, you've got Republicans in blue states, in tight districts that are going to be significantly impacted by this, especially a state like New York. Yeah. By the way, that salt tax, you're right. The Republicans were supposed to bring that back, didn't happen. So, or the reimbursement. So you know what? There are a lot of ways in which Democrats can talk about how Republicans are taking and not giving back. That's not what so-called Republican values have been. But Democrats can be restorative in that regard and try to put more money back in the pockets of Americans.
Well, I know on the salt tax issue, that's a battle that's still brewing. It's not completely a done deal yet. We'll have more to say on the tax front another day. Thank you so much, Melanie Zanona, John Kasich, and Basil Smikle.